Join me for Thanksgiving recipe testing. We've got 2 Thanksgiving dessert recipes, a pumpkin-shaped sourdough bread experiment, homemade sourdough stuffing, and a bonus scratch-made hot chocolate for the holidays coming up. I'm hosting Thanksgiving at my house this year, and I want to make the pumpkin-shaped sourdough bread that you've probably seen all over TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Now, I have seen a few different ways of tying these and things to do with the string, so I want to share with you a little experiment to see what works best. So the 2 things I'm looking at is, does it work better to use dry string or oil soaked string? And does it work better to score or not score the bread? So the first thing to do is just make sure you have sourdough made, proofed, and ready to go. There's a recipe for that in the description box below. You can check that out there. And when you're ready to bake, it's time to cut the string. So here I am just cutting string and getting it laid out on the parchment paper that I'll be baking the bread on. You can see I just crossed them in the center. I think I cut 4 pieces of string for each one, and then turn out the dough onto the center of your pre-laid baker's twine. Don't use regular natural twine. It will leave fibers in your dough. So this is food safe baker's twine. Then just take the string from opposite ends, pull them up and over, and knot them off. Now on this one, I did not score the bread. All I did was just prepare the twine, tie it, knot it, and then I also trimmed off the twine at the top just to get it out of my way. This is a piping hot Dutch oven that I preheated at 500 degrees, and then I just put the bread right in there and baked it like I would any other sourdough for about 25 minutes at 500 degrees, and then drop the temp to 475 and take the lid off. A number of you have mentioned in the comments that you're not comfortable making sourdough yet. I've seen a lot of people on Instagram do this very same process, but with their regular sandwich bread recipe. So it's totally worth trying if you don't make sourdough. So here's what it looks like after the first bake at 500. And then this is what it looks like after the second bake at 475. It looks pretty good. It did split a little bit because it wasn't scored, and it did bake a little uneven, I think, because it wasn't scored. So now I'm trying the oil-soaked twine. It's the exact same process. All I'm doing is tying over the string, but this time it's just soaked in regular old olive oil. I'm also scoring the bread. Now, I am not a bread artist by any stretch of the imagination, so I'm doing a simple wheat shape and kind of lightly, but I did it all the way around the pumpkin loaf. While that was baking, I took off the twine from the original loaf, and I will say it did stick. It was hard for me to cut at the top, and then when I pulled the string around the edges, it stuck along the edges and the bottom, and in some parts it even pulled the bread apart a little bit. So that one, I'm not going to call it a fail, but maybe it was imperfect, but it is okay. It is still worthy of eating. So I just used a little cinnamon stick in the center for a cute stem, and then dried bay leaves for the pumpkin leaves, and I think it still looks adorable. The second loaf with the oiled twine and the scoring was the clear winner. So you can see here when it comes out of the oven, this is after the first bake, it's looking good. And after the second bake, it's looking great. The scoring really helped. It didn't split anywhere. It baked evenly, and the twine came out like a dream. It did not stick anywhere. So I definitely recommend scoring and soaking your twine in olive oil. The one that wasn't quite as perfect, the first one, I am cutting, cubing, and freezing to make a homemade sourdough stuffing, which I will show later in this video. But I also wanted to try my hand at a test recipe for an apple pie. For this, I am actually using the remainder of the apples that we picked in the North Carolina mountains. I have a video in the description box below that shows all the apples we picked and 3 ways to dehydrate them. You can check that out. But with these, I'm making an apple pie with frozen pie crusts. I know, cardinal sin in the scratch-made world, but I've actually never made a homemade pie crust before, and now is not the time to learn. So 2 frozen pie crusts will do the trick, and here I am just mixing a half a stick of butter with 3 tablespoons of flour. In the past, I have used a full stick of butter for apple pie. The half stick was actually just as good, so I'm just sticking with the half stick of butter from now on. Once that is combined, then add in a half a cup of brown sugar and a half a cup of white sugar, and stir that together and warm it until it is combined and smooth. I had my apples soaking in water with fruit fresh to prevent browning. So once they were drained, I took my thawed pie crust and I just put the apples right in there in a nice heap. Now, I did not make sure that I had an even heap, and my pie was a little crooked. So just make sure it's nice and even, and then pour the butter sugar mixture over top. And then you'll take your second pie crust or your homemade pie crust, whatever you're using, and place it on top. Now, I made a mistake here. Don't forget to loosen the pie crust from the tin before you put it on top. It was a total pain to get out. I messed up the crust. You can see me here on the struggle bus trying to get this stupid pie crust out of the tin, but I got it out, but not without messing up my pie aesthetics a little bit. Luckily, this is a test recipe and not the real deal because she is looking a little gnarly, but it still tasted delicious. So put this in the oven at 425 for 15 minutes, drop the heat to 350 and bake for about 30 minutes or until golden. And for the love of God, do not forget to put something underneath your pie to catch anything that drips out of it. My child was eating a ball of Play-Doh and I got distracted and I forgot to put it in there and now my oven is a mess. You can also make this pie in advance and freeze it for Thanksgiving Day. I'm not freezing this one because it wasn't very aesthetically pleasing, but if yours is prettier, you could definitely do that. Okay, back to the sourdough stuffing. So here I am chopping up some onions and celery. I chopped up a lot of extra to make a soup with that I'm going to show in next week's video. And then I am just warming some butter in a cast iron pan and putting the frozen sourdough right into that melted butter. So I like to toss it around a little bit and make sure that the sourdough cubes are coated in the butter, and then put them in a preheated oven at 350 for 20 minutes. I would take them out after about 10 minutes, give it a stir just to make sure that they're not burning, and then put it in for the remaining 10 minutes. Then while that's going on, warm your butter in a pan, and then you can start to saute the celery and the onions. You can let them chill on the stove and cook while you prepare an egg and broth mixture. So here are 2 eggs and then 3 cups of broth mixed together. Then once you have that mixed together, it's time to add in the seasonings, which is the most important part of stuffing, if you ask me, sage and thyme. We love sage in this house, so I put in way more than what you probably will want to, but you can season it to taste. Stir that together, and once your bread is toasted, pour it right over the top of your toasted sourdough and let it sit for about 10 minutes or until the bread has soaked up all of that broth. Stir in your tender, crisp veggies and then pop it right back into the oven for about 25 to 30 minutes or until crispy and golden. This turned out delicious. We love stuffing. I plan on making stuffing all fall, not just for the holidays, but this is perfect for your Thanksgiving feast. Back to dessert, I want to try a variation of pumpkin pie. I'm the only person in my family who likes pumpkin pie, so I don't feel like making a pumpkin pie and an apple pie if I'm the only one eating the pie. So I am making a sourdough discard pumpkin cobbler. You can get this recipe on my blog. You can get the link for that in the description box below. But this is a combination of sourdough starter. You can use active or regular discard, flour, melted butter, and honey. You can long ferment this overnight, but you don't have to. So if you're in a hurry and you don't feel like dealing with fermentation, you can just mix it together and get moving on with the rest of the recipe. I decided to long ferment this overnight on the countertop. Mine fermented for I think about 9 to 10 hours. So the next day it is time to make the pumpkin filling. This is 2 cups of pumpkin puree. You can use store-bought, or if you have your own canned pumpkin, that will work too. And then mix your pumpkin puree, not pumpkin pie filling by the way, with 3 eggs, a half a cup of brown sugar, a half a cup of milk of your choice. I used organic whole milk, 4 tablespoons of melted butter, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, but I always add extra vanilla, 2 teaspoons of pumpkin spice, and you can adjust that to your taste, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I've grown to love baking in my cast iron skillet. So if you have a well-seasoned cast iron skillet, I recommend baking your pumpkin filling in that. Mine's a 15-inch skillet. I think you could probably go as small as 12 inches. If it's too small, your pumpkin filling will be too thick. So if you don't have the right size skillet, or if you don't have a cast iron skillet, you could totally use a 9 by 13 inch baking dish, but you will need to decrease the baking time because it will be thin in a tray that big. So here I'm just pouring it in the cast iron skillet, smoothing it over, making sure it reaches the edge, and then I bake it in the oven for I think about 20 minutes at 425. While that's going, I am preparing the rest of the cobbler ingredients. So it has been on the counter for a long time at this point. So here I am just adding in 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, a half a teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 cup of cream, and a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. This will resemble a crumble more than a batter or a dough, and I've found because of that, the best way to mix it is with clean hands. When the pumpkin filling is done, just take your cobbler mixture and crumble it over the top. It looks a little bit chunky, but when you bake it, it will spread and smooth out across the skillet. This goes back in the oven at 350 for 20 minutes. So while we wait on that, I wanted to share with you a bonus recipe for a holiday homemade hot chocolate. You can find this recipe in the description box below and on my blog. It's really versatile, so I'm just using what I have on hand. So I have dark chocolate chips, a little bit of whole milk, and maple syrup that I am heating on low and stirring until combined. You can use whatever chocolate you have on hand, chocolate powder, cacao. I think this would be delicious with something like Andy's Mints. When it is warm and combined, I'm pouring it right into a mug and frothing whole milk. I love hot chocolate with froth milk. It has a really nice mouthfeel and it tastes richer without any extra added sugar or ingredients. Then there are two ways I think would be really cute to do this for the holidays. One, make it nice and foamy and stick a little cinnamon stick in there, or you can stencil it. I design and make these stencils on a laser cutter at my home. And if Thanksgiving is the kickoff to Christmas for you, this snow globe stencil is perfect. Look how cute that hot chocolate is. You can shop the holiday collection of stencils and more at moonandmagnolia.com. The link is in the description box below. I also think that hot chocolate would be delicious with a shot of espresso. The cobbler is done. I actually took out a slice of this and put it in the freezer because I want to see if it freezes well like an apple pie would. I will let you know soon, but it is so good. And I'm kind of glad no one in my family likes pumpkin cobbler because now I get to eat all of it. That's it for today. Thanks for tuning in to Moon and Magnolia, where we elevate the everyday from scratch and at home. And I'll see you again next time.